Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fanfiction Tapes, Season 3. I'm your host today, Maya, pronouns she, her, and today I'm joined by...
The Dylan guy. Hi. Yeah.
And me, Wolf, once more. I'm back. Hello.
And as always, I am our producer, Ian.
Today's episode is about the great debate, streaming or theaters? It's a debate that's kind of popped up more, I think, in recent years, especially after COVID, of do you bother to go out and watch the movie while it's in theaters, or is it better to just stay home, wait for it to come out on streaming, and watch it then?
You know, it's always, I think COVID definitely brought it to the forefront more than ever before. But streaming's always been one of those things of, we're getting to a point, right? I feel personally that you can practically have the theater experience in your own living room at this point, just about, right? Like you don't, granted, there's definitely some quality stuff that a theater can still do that, regular normie people who aren't, super filthy rich can't do yet. But we can get kind of close, right? And it at a point, it's basically a thing of how much of that quality do you care about at that point, and how much are you willing to pay for it essentially at that point, right?
I think that's always a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Given that I am technically not currently a college student, but still broke as hell. Right, for me, I don't have, a super great monitor. I don't have super high quality headphones. I have decent headphones, probably better headphones than I have a monitor. But I don't see the quality you get from the theater prices being super worth it.
I agree, right? I'm also, it also doesn't help that I would rather be in the comfort of my own home, right? That way, I can just be wearing clothes that are just comfortable and I don't have to really care about how I look and make sure I'm nice and all this bullshit. I can just sit down, watch the movie and be comfortable and
watch a movie and
to.
you can be the asshole you always want to be,
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
absolutely.
be nice.
Yeah. I can say shit. I can pause it when I want to pause it.
Yeah. Imagine if you could do that in a movie theater. Get up. Sorry, guys. I really got to go. I'm sorry. I'll be back now.
There's always going to be that one person. And I think I would do it at least once too. Just be like, pause. Just for the fun of it. Just for the fuck. Just to be that dickhead. There has to be someone. I admit it. I would do it at least once.
You would cause at least 2 divorces.
Absolutely.
But that's like the other thing is like, why do you want to like go out, travel, and it could be any way amount of time. I think it take like 20 minutes driving, like 40 minutes on public transport for me to get to the nearest cinema.
And it's a 30-minute drive for me.
Yeah. And then I've got to, buy a movie ticket, buy stuff there, and all this other stuff to watch a movie among other people. Not guaranteeing I'll have a good experience, because what if I end up with like someone crazy or something weird? That's always like something that you risk by being in a place that could have, like, if you're watching a movie at like a busy time, you could be in there with like 100 people,
Yeah, no, I agree. You know what? F it, yeah, sure. Story time with Wolf, right? My last theater experience, the last time I went, I'm leaving the parking lot, and great old America. Someone decides, you know what? I'm going to be funny. Racial slur yelled out in the parking lot. Every black person turns around, looks around. Was that you? And I'm like, nope. Was not me. Do not look at me. I don't want to deal with any bullshit. That was them over there. Have fun, whatever. Don't care. I'm leaving.
That is
not getting involved.
It's a little depressing when I mentally went, oh, that's not that bad. I was expecting something worse.
True. Granted, right? It was, again, dumb teenagers being dumb. And
Yeah.
once everybody started looking at the dude that did yell at it, he's like, I'm sorry, I thought it'd be funny. Like, okay, gets in car, drive away. Not my problem no more. I am too old.
Last time I went to theaters wasn't a bad experience. That was actually a really good one. I went to see the Dungeons and Dragons movie in theaters because I could see it like I think it was like a week early or something from Amazon thing. So I went with a friend of mine, and I mean it was a great movie. It was a great time. There's no one really causing trouble. But like I'm just a shut-in, so I don't really like leaving the house.
Fair. Don't disagree with you. Like, I'm definitely biased towards streaming, right? But I mean, and I'll be fair to theaters. Like, that was a one-off. I've not had many experiences like that. You know, so like it's not something I fully blame theaters for, right? But it is a thing that can happen. But I will say, you know, one pro I think you can have for theaters that I think is also slowly being eroded away, and we can kind of get to that in a bit, but definitely one of the pros of theaters is just that sense of being with other people and watching something and all reacting to it together, right? And that ability to talk about the movie with other random people as you're leaving. I'm sure very few people actually do that amongst the people who are here, right? But I have done it or have taken part in those kind of conversations with random people once or twice before, and it is interesting. It is a way to generate that kind of camaraderie and that kind of like social experience that you won't get from streaming, obviously.
Yeah. If we want to talk about like different aspects, and you know, we're talking about why we would or wouldn't. I actually used to go to the theaters a lot, and it was mostly like a family day out, but now like my family doesn't do that, so I'm pretty much just like I'd like to go, but like most movies I am either like, yeah, I don't really care for that, and you know, getting people to actually go with you. The actual interesting thing is like what this means, you know. And we actually have to talk about streaming and how it's affected other things and how it has affected what movies are made. With DVD sales no longer existing, movies are made differently. So DVDs used to be a good way for movies to make back its budget, even if it didn't get it at the box office. Now that they no longer exist and are put on streaming services instead, which doesn't make the money back in the same way, what that means is you don't get many smaller budget movies as you used to. You will still find them, but it happens a lot less often, you know.
I think you do, but it's definitely a thing of theaters aren't showing them in the way they used to, right? Because used to you could show a film like that along with a bunch of other like major blockbuster films, and while you may not get as much money off the shorter, smaller film, right, for the theater, it doesn't matter because it's like, you know, balanced out by all the big budget releases, right? And people go into those.
But the other thing is, sorry, but like things didn't used to be like when we talk about direct to DVD movies, when we meant like really low budget stuff. Now you're getting direct to Netflix movies, which are like as expensive as most theater movies, but now,
if not more.
Yeah, but now the theater movies are mega movies. You know, we're talking about Marvel, who are like, oh yeah, we'll drop $1 billion on this movie between everything, and you're like, well, how is this movie meant to do anything? And then because it's Marvel, it mostly doesn't. And then they're like, we got to go back to the
It used to work for them.
It used to. And then
I think some of that might be oversaturation. So I don't think
oversaturation market, you know, like
I don't think it's fully a streaming problem, but streaming definitely has a hand in it, right? As to why they're choosing to do it. And I think that's also why we've seen a rise in the like end credit scene too, right? Like, yeah. Sure. I think they're starting to do like either more events or just more things with the movie at the theaters that you won't get in streaming unless you go to the theater to watch it, right? And I think you're going to start seeing the rise of more and more of that, of like, hey, if you come to watch it at the theater, here's a special thing that you can only see in the theater, or here's a special event that you can only have at the theater. Like they've always done that, but I think we are starting to see the rise of more and more and more of that. Since, as you said, like DVD sales, they still exist, but it's definitely nowhere near to the degree that it used to be.
Yeah.
Also, some hopefully I hope this doesn't catch on, because I think this is a really terrible practice. But with the second Spider-Verse movie, right, there were different theatrical releases. And I could see that being a thing of trying to drive more theater going, oh, there's these little secrets in different versions, so you have to go multiple times and you never know quite what you're going to get. It's just, I could see companies reinventing the fucking loot box for movies, and ew.
Yep. I wasn't fond of that either, so I don't want to see it. But
I got the 5 out of 10 Ant-Man instead of the 6 out of 10 Ant-Man. No.
God. But you're not wrong, though. They absolutely would and will, and that's a problem.
I think they did get into trouble for that.
Right, a little bit at least.
Yeah.
I think what they got into trouble for, from what I recall, was actually more labor stuff, right?
Well, they did get into like minor trouble over that. It's like, it's like the trailer question, where I think Sony, for some of the other movies, started putting things in trailers that weren't accurate. And, it's become a thing with trailers now, falsely advertising, and people going, this is false advertising, we can technically sue you.
Yeah, I mean, if you screw around with that, you kind of deserve to get what happens. And mostly we've been talking about, like, the pros of streaming, because we're all shut-in nerds that don't like to go outside. What are some cons of streaming?
Before we go on to cons of streaming, I would like to add one more thing on the pros column. The worst theater experience I have personally ever had. The nearest theater is not inconveniently far from me. It's a 15-minute bike ride, easily doable. It's a very nice theater. Okay, I went to go see Dune Part 1 a couple years ago when that came out. I bought my tickets online through their website. I get to the box office. I pick up the ticket. It says Dune Part 1 on it. I go into the theater, sit down, wait through the commercials. The movie starts. It's Marvel's The Eternals.
What?
In between me picking up my ticket and going into the theater and the movie starting, the theater changed what movie they were showing.
What?
Wow. Why would they do that?
I don't know. Maybe they just hadn't gotten very many ticket sales for Dune.
So they
at
put
that
on
particular
a
showing?
worse selling movie?
Honestly, my guess would be that
How
there was
dare you?
It was.
like some technical issue where they were showing the Eternals, so they had to move what was showing where.
Did you get a refund?
I did. That's like, my absolute nightmare scenario of any sort of interacting with retail is having to talk to a manager for a refund. But I wanted Dune and they gave me Eternals. I'm getting a refund for that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
that is something that can happen, though.
Was
it's rare,
Dune
but
playing in the theater? Somewhere else, or?
I don't remember if they moved it or not. I was pissed. I got a refund and left. I didn't go back to that theater until Dune Part 2 came out.
Yeah,
I actually still haven't seen either movie.
Now, if we do want to chalk something up into the cons of streaming thing, you started off earlier mentioning that you don't have like the greatest audio visual setup because you're a broke college student or former college student at this point. Dune Part 2 is the sort of movie that is best seen in a theater that actually has a large screen and professional sound system. Like I can imagine watching that in my apartment here and it would be fine. It is an experience seeing it in a theater.
I would agree. Like, there's absolutely like some movies that How to Train Your Dragon, right, was one of them. You know, I remember watching that, and I never went to watch it in theaters, but everyone I've talked to who saw it for like in theaters with the 3D and stuff like that said it was absolutely phenomenal. That watching it in the theater and watching it on like streaming service or Blu-ray, it just doesn't compare. There's a quality difference there, and I get that, fully understand that. Like, and that I think that's one of those things of, I think that's either a pro or a con. It being a pro or a con is going to vary depending on who you talk to, because some people don't care about that. Some people absolutely want that, and it's very dependent.
Yeah, it's also going to depend on the sort of story being told.
True.
Because if it's a spectacle, like Dune Part 2 is very much a spectacle. How to Train Your Dragon in 3D is very much a spectacle.
Yeah.
But if you're not so much interested in the spectacle and you just want the story, streaming is fine.
Agreed.
I mean, for me with Dune, I'm familiar with the story. I've read the book a couple times. I would be there for the spectacle, so I'd probably want to have seen that in theaters. Fortunately, I think I kind of missed the window on that one.
What
Just a bit.
yeah, what I will say is you also see like how some movies make a lot more sense in the movie, like going there. I watched No Way Home. That was the last movie I saw. I don't go often. But the way they shoot when, spoiler alert for a 3-year-old movie or whatever, 2 years. The way they shoot when the other two Spider-Men first appear, and it's like they pause unnaturally to allow for audiences to go, oh, or clap. It's really weird how it's shot. It's like, that's like, you made this for the movie theater moment, you know? You get that sometimes. What I will say is, when we are talking about movies, and you're talking about like watching a movie in a theater and a movie on streaming, most of the time it's probably better in a movie theater to watch it. Extenuating circumstances, no kidding. It's just, there's a lot less on offer in the movie theaters these days. With streaming, the thing with streaming is you'll have those highs and lows, and you also get those movies. So you're taking like a 5% hit on atmosphere, but you get those movies and you get every other movie as well.
No, well, I mean, not always, right? And there is something that I think some movie theaters are starting to hit on, and I don't know if you've heard of them doing this. I've heard of a few doing it, but I've never been to any that have done it yet. But like little, basically film festivals where they're going back and re-showing much older films that it's harder to find nowadays and you don't see in theaters anymore, re-showing them and like having those events basically where, hey, you can come and watch this with a bunch of like-minded people who are interested in old stuff like this, and you can watch it with them, and there's a very different kind of atmosphere for that, and that's where that social aspect comes into it again, right?
I mean, Wolf, do you know what they've got playing in theaters right now? It's a special event.
What?
It's the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's back in theaters.
May the 5th be with you.
Yeah.
No, but see, like, the thing though is I say that, and I do think the social aspect is also coming towards streaming too, somewhat though, with watch-alongs where you stream something to other people and you watch it together. Like, I would say that probably came way more prevalent during the pandemic, especially, but like internet speeds are getting to that point now where you can kind of do that now and share that with other people and watch it together as well. So even theaters are losing a lot of ground in a lot of different ways to streaming. I do think that, right, and again, I'm biased here, but I do think that there's still a place for them, but it's definitely a niche place. I think theaters are starting to turn into, and I, I don't know if there's a way to stop this or if you would want to stop it even, but they're starting to turn to a place where if you're going to the theater, you're going there because you're looking for a type of quality you just cannot get in any other way.
I mean, I think that's always been what the theater has been like.
Yeah, but I think it used to, right? It was. I don't think the quality experience mattered as much as it does nowadays, right?
I think there was some of it was also back then. It was there was a longer lag time between theatric showing and DVD release.
Yeah, it's like 60 days now, whereas it would have been like a year, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a year, but a
year.
couple months at least.
Yeah,
Depended
I
on
think it was like 6
certain
months.
studios. Certain studios, they could get a DVD out quicker. Others would be like, no.
And it's basically right not long after it stops showing in theaters, you can find it on streaming services. So it's like it's absolutely possible to avoid spoiling yourself for stuff long enough to just watch it at home, which wasn't doable when I was growing up. And okay, you watch this on, in theaters, or you're going to hear about it because it's going to be, 6 months before you can watch it on DVD at home.
See, that's such an interesting point you bring up because I know I'm not the only one here, but I am old enough to know that there was a time where you didn't have to worry about that with theaters either, right? Because internet just wasn't much of a thing. So it's like if you didn't go out and watch it, it didn't matter. You might have heard about it from a friend at school or like somewhere like that, but more often than not, no one was going to talk about it, and you could just easily avoid spoilers because the internet and Twitter and stuff like that just wasn't a thing that you could log into and instantly see spoilers for the thing you wanted to watch.
To be fair, I was a child at one point, and I knew if I don't go watch Toy Story 3 at the movies, I ain't seen that for a while. So I have to go see it now.
Fair.
Because I understand that concept. So it's fair. But now it'd be like, Toy Story 12 is coming out. I'll probably see that it reviewed at like 40 and never watch it. Like people say this is crap, and I'll be like, okay then.
That gave you one over me, as you understood a concept of time I still don't.
But yeah, I think event theater is definitely the thing now.
I think we're definitely moving towards that era, and you're definitely going to see like more event theater and more them trying to do just other things to invite people into the theater that they normally wouldn't have or wouldn't do very often because they have to.
My favorite movie story of the past year was just the marketing accident that was Barbenheimer. Just boosted 2 movies that had nothing to do with each other, and theaters took that and said, hey, why don't we make this a package? Because everyone memed on it. It was great.
It's smart.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to, but hey, it worked out, so fair enough. Fair play.
I do think like that will be like a thing. That'd be a great thing for movie theaters if people just started putting like, oh yeah, we'll run our movies around the same time. Because that allows for those theaters to then go, hey, you can watch these 2 movies that are completely different. Why wouldn't you? Like, it would be a lot more interesting than going to see whatever the next... I mean, I think the next Marvel movie is going to be Deadpool. It's like, whatever.
Beats me. I don't really keep up with generally movie releases. I've never been a huge movie watcher, honestly. I just kind of never have been.
No, fair. I've always been on and off. I think I've done a little bit more as of late, but that's still like, very small compared to what some people go to the theaters, and, how much they do it, right? But even then, it's a thing of I only do it if I'm going with friends or with family, or I just, otherwise I just won't.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like going with friends, I feel bad if I go to a theater and I talk in it, because people are there to experience it, whatever. But if I'm watching a movie with friends, I would rather just all of us gather around at someone's house and watch it because I can interact with my friends and kind of watch the movie at the same time. Of course, we're really kind of there more for the interaction in that case than the
That's
movie
fair.
itself.
Absolutely fair. And again, like, yeah, I agree with you. Right? It's hard to interact. Like, we would whisper a little bit here or there, but even then, it would be a rare thing because there is that kind of like social contract. Everything. It's like, well, I don't want to ruin the experience for someone else. I don't want to be that dickhead over there in the front row who's screaming out everything that's happening, and he's having a blast. But thanks for ruining the movie for the rest of us, dickhead.
Yeah, I guess that's also, I guess, a con of theaters is there will be people like that ignore the social contract. So if the experience you're after is provided through the social contract,
It's also a thing. It's just like because they are. Another thing that happened is TV sort of became grander again, and streaming services that demand for TV shows. So when you talk about like, your adaptations or whatever, which were like a big thing for movies back in the day, now everyone wants to adapt things into an 8 to 10 episode miniseries instead. We can run that for like 10 seasons or whatever people want, and it's now like people rather want to watch that. I feel like as well is a movie isn't enough. Like a lot of people just are like, why would I want to watch a movie that's just a movie and doesn't even have like a sequel or doesn't tell like a big story like the Marvel movies or whatever. Some people just don't like that, which is wild.
Well, it also doesn't help, right, that there has been like a quality dip for movies in that we've not been getting a whole lot of brand new stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
that's not just been movies. TV shows have been getting the same thing.
Yeah, but I think it has affected movies more than it has TV shows as of right now, right?
It's because movies have such a higher bar to enter.
Yeah, I think that's the big reason. Like TV shows, you can kind of just you can still to a degree kind of just throw anything at the wall, and if it sticks, it sticks. If it don't, we move on.
Also,
that's stopping, but like it's movies again, as Dylan said, it's just that higher bar of quality, and if you don't hit that, it's way more noticeable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think also just TV shows with inconsistent or meh quality are, they're fine. It's called daytime television for a reason, right? It's stuff that's
you
on.
can forgive a lot more.
Yeah, that you can forgive a lot more. It doesn't need to be as good because, well, if it's on at noon, everyone's going to be at work, right? A lot of the population that has the money to pay for TV bills is probably going to be working a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, cable television itself is dying in favor of streaming and things like that. But the weekday daytime stuff is, well, it's kind of there to fill time almost.
I mean,
you say cable TV is dying and for streaming, but we're on the path of slowly making streaming like cable TV again. So
yeah,
we're just recreating. We're just recreating. The TV. Just we're just recreating it.
It's because rich people have no ideas.
I mean, true, but
the only idea is, well, this worked.
Their only idea is get in my mouth.
Hold on now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like, and the other things with streaming is technology limitations, internet speed limitations can be a struggle for some people, you know.
I would say it still is, but I think we're getting to that point where that's becoming less and less noticeable
Yeah. Other stuff
to a
is
degree.
the other stuff is some of these movies are exclusively on very obscure streaming platforms, you know. And
Looking at you,
that's it.
Peacock.
Yeah.
Who fucking pays for your ass? Why CBS? NBC, whatever the it is. I don't remember anymore.
Hey, they're even losing the WWE to Netflix. Poor Peacock.
Peacock is NBC, I think. That's the
Yeah,
Yeah, it's NBC Universal. Why? Why NBC? Why?
It is an interesting choice to be sure.
Well, it's also the thing of everyone and their damn mother wanted to, you know, their streaming platform because they saw how good Netflix was. And
then
you know,
everyone did it, and now I realize, oh, that don't work.
And now they're trying to sell everything as a package instead because they don't. Because
Hello,
they want
cable TV.
Yeah, they want their streaming service to exist, but so Netflix doesn't just gobble up all this potential profit. But also, we can't survive without a package existing.
Don't get me wrong, right? Like I will fully agree that Netflix should not be the only game in town, 100%. But what we created instead, I feel, was not the answer and has not helped solve any problem whatsoever of Netflix being the only game in town. It just made it worse.
Yeah,
Netflix still has the biggest market share. It's just they try to eat away at that market, and it's like, oh, but running a streaming service costs a lot. So even eating up that market, what is it giving you?
It's expensive to even do that for very little return.
Yeah, so like Marvel ends up spending $300 million on Secret Invasion, which was terrible, that no one signed up for.
So we've talked a lot about the cons of theaters extensively, and we've talked about the cons of streaming. We talked about the pros of streaming. We didn't really talk much about the pros of theaters.
I mean, it comes down to like atmosphere. That's basically it. Is atmosphere you can get like 3D, which is also coming to some TVs, but not as good, and you get like IMAX and stuff.
I think it's definitely the atmosphere, that quality, some of the social aspect. I think are definitely some cons there, and the ability to, I think, that we're starting to see some theaters pick up on and do more of. Like I said, is that those event style things of older films or older, like, style of films, things like that.
I think that kind of thing is going to be what keeps theaters alive. Right, as a business model, they've been losing out over time, and I think that'll be what keeps them around.
There's also, I would say like the indie film scene, right? You're not going to see that in streaming service or anything like that. I think they too can help keep the theater industry alive, and I think some of them are turning, and I've seen it in some of my local theaters, is like kind of an indie film thing, like, hey, here's a bunch of different indie films we're showing this week because there are no big blockbuster releases this week or the week after, so we're doing an event thing for indie films. Come watch them. It's a little bit cheaper or what have you.
No, what they gotta do is get on the thing that's keeping TV alive, which is show more live sport in movie theaters. It's keeping TV alive. That's what they need.
I don't know that you could quite get away with playing the Super Bowl in theaters. I think that would go interestingly.
Hey,
it's
back
worth a shot though. I like asking you, Dylan. You watch wrestling and everything. What would you think about going to a theater to watch a live wrestling event?
Yeah, I would, because like people do like bars. Bars have people, but I don't drink, and also it's uncomfortable being at a bar in the middle of a city. But going to a movie theater, I'd be like, okay, it's just a more comfortable place, And wrestling used to be ran in movie theaters back in the days of closed circuit television. When it was on CCTV and all that, people would go to the movies to watch the wrestling show because they, it was on cable.
No, fair.
So,
I think that's definitely an interesting idea, right? And I think that is something that could be looked at is, hey, here's this live event, or it doesn't even have to be sports related. I think you can do it with a lot of different live events potentially. Is, hey, here's this live event that you're not going to be able to see otherwise, maybe. So why don't we, play it at the theaters and show it there so you can watch it in a quality that's better than what you might get streaming on your TV or computer at home, and you can experience that with a group of people still that you also wanted to see it, so you can react to it and everything.
Yeah, it's the midway point between what is
it's basically turning the theater into a streaming service, but like, because you are streaming the event to the theater, but
yeah,
like it's a combination of the two, I suppose, and I don't think that's a bad combination, really.
Yeah, it's the in-between of being in your home and watching alone and being at the stadium. You get the best of both worlds. You have a group of people who want to be there to watch the same thing as you, and also those things, like, you don't have to be quiet for sporting events. They also encourage that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of expected that you make some noise.
Yeah. And that would be like why I would love to watch wrestling. Watching wrestling on that big a screen and also being able to chant.
It's true, and being other people chanting with you. Like,
Yeah.
it would. I definitely think there would be a growing pain, right, of people going there and being like, oh, I should be quiet. It's like, no, you don't have to be for this, but like, people are probably going to feel like they should be quiet and not do that. There'd probably be like some awkwardness at start, but
Yeah, I think there would definitely be
it's
awkwardness.
actually not a bad idea.
Wouldn't happen in the UK,
Well,
by the way. Maybe no.
I mean,
lads.
the issue for me is like I'm a hockey fan. That's the sport of poison for me. I don't know if I would really want to go to a theater to watch a hockey game. Because if I'm of course I'm also in the position of where I have always been able to go and physically watch a hockey game. City where I grew up in has a hockey team. City that I'm moving to has a hockey team. I am hardly spoiled for choice. Or I am spoiled for choice. Words. I have the option of going and being there physically. I can see how, though, for folks that aren't in the can easily enough, let's say within an hour max drive of a location, I can see how you would want to be able to just go to a local theater and watch it.
Yeah, I think it would definitely turn out to be, hey, this is an option for, oh, I'm going to have to get on a plane, rent a hotel, and like make a whole thing if I want to go see my sporting event of choice, right? But
Yeah.
I could also just go to my local theater who's showing it and watch it that way. And yeah, maybe I don't get to be there in person, but at least I get to experience it if, like, this is too much of an expense and too much of a thing for me to commit to, right?
What it is doing is it's going back to stuff that worked in the past again. Because before pay-per-view was, accessible through, television or your cable provider, that's what you had to do, all those old boxing events, and why, the pay-per-view box office is called the box office because you used to have to go somewhere to go see this big boxing match.
True.
You had to go pay your ticket and go wait for the broadcast to come through there because TVs weren't able to support, that back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I just think it's really cool. And
No, I agree with you. Like, theaters, hey,
I don't
listen,
think-
here's a free idea for you. Run with it.
Yeah.
We don't charge.
Yeah, no, seriously. You show WrestleMania, I'll be there 2 nights. I'll go down both days. Both days. That's 2 days you'd get me that you would never get me any other time. And I'd much rather do that. I'm paying, if I'm paying, like £14 to watch it on my own, I'll pay £20 to go watch it in a movie theater.
No, that's fair. Like, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, because and I think it works better for like those type of events. I don't think team sports like hockey, maybe the Super Bowl or World Cup final, like those big ones. But your average sporting event, probably not. But your big ones, definitely.
It would be, yeah. I think you'd probably have to be picky and choosy.
Yeah, I think it would probably work better with stuff that's like spectacles, finals, that kind of thing.
Like, yeah, maybe a big tournament thing, or like you said, a final thing, or the NFL, or like your WrestleMania, or your big wrestling events. Maybe not just it's your average wrestling night,
Yeah, they could definitely run WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and the Royal Rumble, especially the Royal Rumble. Oh, so good. that would be like awesome. Comparatively, you wouldn't want to see the Atlanta Falcons versus whoever, like on a random Sunday.
I think if you did that, like you're talking like, hey, that's just the local theater showing them for away games, maybe, right?
Yeah, that's the only thing would be. It's like when local bars will show the game.
Yeah.
Except it's a movie theater. Because that's also why I don't like it. Sport is so associated with like bars and drinking. Like, give this non-alcoholic guy somewhere to go watch, but have it be a bit bigger. Hey,
just drink. Just drink.
Okay, get your
come down to the rest of our level. Come down to the rest of our level.
You and your poor liver.
Stare at the bottom of that barrel with us, Dylan.
No. Yeah, I think stuff like that. I don't know what other things you could run. Maybe some like exclusive Broadway things, because I know that in general is struggling. Theater and at the moment proper theater.
I don't get to go to like the proper theater enough, right?
Yeah,
and because again, that's even further away from me. That's such a long ass drive.
You live in like the middle of nowhere.
Like yes, I live in North Carolina in the country, so. It's a 30-minute drive for me to get to my closest, regular movie theater. If I want to go to like an actual, Broadway production sort of deal, I think the closest one is an hour from me. It's like, ugh. And that's one way, by the way.
Yeah, I'm probably well within 30 minutes of like an IMAX theater. And there's some good IMAX stuff here for me, which is nice.
Like, I've got one that's decently close, but it's still a drive, which sucks.
IMAX is, I gotta say, IMAX, when it's made right, IMAX is pretty darn cool.
Agreed.
There's been some cool stuff that I've seen in IMAX theaters, but again, it's not really one of those things that really makes me want to crawl out of my hole and socialize with other human beings.
No, that's fair. I think it's definitely one of those things of, theaters, your regular movie theater, I think one of the biggest pros for them is that you can, if you're willing to do so, turn that place into hey, here's the, you're not going to get the live experience of the thing you'd like to go to, but you may, whether you can afford to go to it or not, or whether you just don't have the time or what have you to see it live, here's that experience, for you in a place that it's still better quality than you might get at your home, and you can still have some of that social aspect of what you would be going to if you went to the thing physically, right? I think that's definitely, if theaters are willing to make that switch and do stuff like that, and you can get something like that set up, which I don't think would be hard for movie theaters to do, to be honest. That might be like the big next thing for movie theaters, if they can set stuff like that up. Their next big pro of like, hey, this is what you go to the movies for. This is your, I don't want to necessarily say off-brand, but your, like, it might be lesser quality than the physical experience, but you can still have it. Otherwise, when you otherwise just wouldn't be able to, for whatever your reasons might be. Because that's why streaming became a thing, right? Because streaming was, for a time, cheaper than the movie theater, and you could have that experience or you could have a movie theater like experience, but you lose out on the social aspect and maybe some of the quality. Convenience versus what that thing gives you basically is what you're trading off.
Yeah, you're trading off like the experience of going to the place and having it be a bit more memorable, because it's just normalized. You watch thousands of things from your couch or from your computer seat. Very different to going to a theater,
Yeah, no, I agree. Something I don't know how you guys would feel about it, but what do you think of like live streaming in general, right? For Twitch and YouTube, stuff like that. Do you think this has any play in this kind of discussion or not?
I think Twitch in a theater would be very weird.
Well, not just that. Like, do you think Twitch streaming or YouTube live streaming, stuff like that, has had any play on the effects of streaming, in regards to theaters, in regards to like general how people watch and view things now?
Theaters specifically, I don't think so. But how people watch and view things, yeah, absolutely. I just don't think. I think more of their impact would be on what we see on like cable, right? And with streaming services, the rise of those.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what do those things show that could be put in, and outside of like big fighting game tournaments, probably not much.
VTubers and VTubing events.
I don't want to go to a theater filled with a bunch of people cheering for their Roshi.
I don't either, but I think that's an event that a theater could have and do, and I wouldn't be shocked and surprised if that becomes a thing in the future at some point of like, hey, because right, that's another thing of, hey, here's this, main, like HoloLive is one of the big names, right? Here's this HoloLive event. Come to Japan, otherwise go fuck yourself, right?
I think
but
that would
or pay for it online, and you get like it's okay quality, but you're watching online and you're at your home on your computer with your shitty headphones and blah blah blah. Or go to the theater, watch that HoloLive event. What now?
My headphones are great, I'll have you know.
I think that will require VTubers to become more mainstream than they are currently. Because
I feel like
you don't need to be mainstream. Understand that you don't have to be mainstream to do one-off events. For one-off events, you just need to have a fan base that is ready to pay.
True.
Okay? Yeah, a starved fan base especially. WWE just went to France and ran like a 12,000-seater arena in Lyon and pulled the biggest ever gate for any arena event. Not stadium, but arena. That's because they never ran a show that big in France. So if you just do it with people who are like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, they will do it.
True. Like, yeah, you give people an option, and a lot of people will take that option over what they might otherwise have had.
Now, if you saturate that, it's not a long-term thing.
No, fair.
Once the once-in-a-lifetime effect is gone, yeah, who cares, But that's when you have to start selling them on, that was great, I want to do that again. Which not everyone wants to do that, So that's why you have to, WWE by, not running Europe for 30 years made us pretty hungry. So they go just for our money, and that's what theaters need to do. Don't show movies for 30 years and then come back.
I don't know if that's the best idea.
I think that would kind of kill theaters as a business.
Look, Vince McMahon, he's not doing anything at the moment. Put him in charge of AMC.
Good luck.
I feel like we should just put him in jail, not in charge of another company.
That was my first option.
But if we can't do that, second option, hey, Vince McMahon, take over AMC. You can't do worse, I guess.
Yeah.
I think you can, but we'll see.
I thought the idea was he can, in fact, do worse. That's why we're putting him in charge.
Look, AMC is just a slightly worse option than hell.
not to give Vince McMahon any credit, but there are times where, when he has an idea that hits, it hits. Granted, those times are extremely f***ing rare, I feel. But they do on occasion and have happened. I'll give him that. That's it. That's all I'm willing to give him. And even that's like too much, I feel. But there you go.
Look, Vince McMahon would have shown the XFL final in theaters. He would have. If the XFL didn't die after one season.
Vince McMahon will create the XFL of theaters. I don't know what that looks like or what that is, but Actually, no, I know what that is. Dylan, there's going to be a lot of drinking in theaters if Vince McMahon takes over.
No! No booze.
A lot of booze, a lot of like half-naked women. There you go. That's Vince McMahon's new theater idea.
The Rock comes out and cuts a promo before every movie.
Yes, there you go.
Get out of here, Dwayne. I already see you enough. Alrighty. I think we've had an episode.
We have had quite the episode, and if you're not quite ready to murder us, Ian, do we have anything in the mailbag today?
I do not see anything in the mailbag today, so if you would like to weigh in on whether you prefer going to the theater or whether you prefer streaming things at home, our email address is fanfictapes@gmail.com. You can also leave us a comment on our YouTube channel, or you can leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you catch this show. You can also reach out to us on social media. Right now, we only have a presence on Twitter, formerly X, for some reason, and Maya is in charge of that station.
Yes, our handle there is @fanfictiontapes with a capital F, capital T, no spaces, dashes, or underscores to be found. We post about episodes on there and sometimes other things. Sometimes. So if you want to yell at us about how we're all loser shut-ins that don't leave the house, you can do it there. We enjoy engagement.
Give your interesting ideas for what Vince McMahon would turn theaters into. Or maybe you have a different CEO or famous person who you should think should take over streaming or theaters, like Elon Musk.
He'll just change the
murder
movie
you
into
with a baking pin.
There'll just be a big X in the middle of the theater screen. He loves
Let's
that
just
letter.
give all media to David Zaslav.
There you go. He'll do great with it. Because there won't be
Very
any.
convenient that I can't easily get to you. Our next episode will be about how just because media may contain themes or events, it does not equate to authorial approval.
Ooh, interesting. I hope
That's
you
a
have
fun one. I'm kind of looking forward to that one, as much as it's probably also going to be something of a mess.
It'll be fine. I'll just scream at people.
Wolf, before we go, do you have anything you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, you can. I do other podcast work. Whoa, I know, surprising. You can find me on the Burtcast / the Outcast. The Burtcast is home, an unprofessional, debatably amusing podcast for fans and by fans of How to Train Your Dragon. We have the live action How to Train Your Dragon coming up within the next year or two. That'll be a fun thing to talk about as we learn and hear more. We also do the Outcast. Yeah, there's a live action How to Train Your Dragon being made.
Today I learned.
Shit, you're not.
That's gonna go.
It'll be fun. We also, as I said, home to the Outcast. More or less the same, just marginally less dragons. We recently did a video for the Outcast on Ruby Beyond and talking about, what's happening with Ruby and how that kind of sucks. But looking forward to the future. It'll be interesting. So yeah, you can find me there if you want to hear more of me rambling on about different shows and movies and other things with my host, HC.
Awesome. Well, folks, I am and have been Maya, and today I was joined by...
I am and always will be Dylan.
I was Wolf.
And I am Ian. Until next time, bye.